In 1978, every American truck rode a ladder frame, ran a V8 engine, and weighed well past 3,000 pounds. Subaru looked at that formula and sawed the roof off a station wagon. The BRAT tipped the scales under 2,200 pounds, dodged a 25% federal tariff with plastic jump seats bolted into its open bed, and somehow still went places real trucks couldn't. The engineering that made it work shouldn't have been impossible. A former Subaru engineer remembers the moment the prototype BRAT rolled onto the test track, the dash-mounted button ready to be stabbed. No levers, no crawling under the front bumper, just a satisfying click. That button was wired straight to an electromagnetic actuator on the transfer case, triggering Subaru's secret weapon, a viscous coupling center differential. Most American trucks of the era demanded brute strength, a heavy, clunky lever to wrestle the front axle into action. The BRAT, by contrast, relied on a bath of silicone fluid and a shearing torque path. When the front wheels slipped, the viscous unit sensed the speed difference and thickened up, progressively locking the differential and shuffling torque rearward. On dry pavement, the system stayed loose and light, but as soon as mud or snow appeared, the coupling locked down, sending up to 80% of the drive to the rear. No heavy transfer case, no ladder frame, and no extra weight. Just a clever, almost sneaky way to deliver real off-road traction. The push-button four-wheel drive wasn't just a party trick, it was the first pillar of the BRAT's impossible engineering, letting a featherweight, car-based pickup punch far above its class. Drop the hood on a BRAT, and the first thing that jumps out, besides the spare tire perched like an afterthought, is the engine's oddball layout. Subaru ditched the tall upright inline fours and V8 engines that dominated American truck bays. Instead, they went with the EA71 and later the EA81, horizontally opposed cylinders splayed out flat, barely 6 inches high from oil pan to carb. The result is that the engine mass sits just above the front axle, tucked low and wide, pulling the whole vehicle's center of gravity toward the pavement. This isn't just trivia for gearheads. With the boxer block bolted at 4 points, 2 on the firewall rail and 2 on a subframe under the floor, the BRAT could corner without the body roll that turned rival pickups into lumbering boats. One engineer called it a pancake under the hood, no tower of power, just a slab of torque. The low-slung setup made room for the spare tire above, but more importantly, it let the suspension do its job without fighting a top-heavy load. On paper, it was backwards. On the road, it stuck like glue, setting up the next round of Subaru's space-saving tricks. Space inside the BRAT was a logic puzzle solved with a crowbar and a slide rule. With a footprint barely longer than a compact sedan, Subaru's engineers had to carve out a real pickup bed and still fit all the guts of a four-wheel drive machine. The trick started under the hood. The spare tire, instead of hogging space in the bed, sat in a steel cage bolted right above the boxer engine. That cage wasn't just a clever party trick. It tied into the firewall and the front crossmember, using the engine's low profile to keep the whole nose stiff. Out back, the story got even stranger. The unibody shell was reinforced with extra thick crossmembers up to 0.75 millimeters thicker than the wagon it was based on, and a beefed-up rear bulkhead. These hidden reinforcements let the bed handle real loads without folding in half, all while keeping the curb weight under 2,200 pounds. Instead of leaf springs and a live axle, the BRAT ran independent suspension at all 4 corners. The rear double wishbone setup, borrowed and then overbuilt from the Leon II, let each wheel travel up to 7.5 inches, soaking up rocks and ruts that would have sent a solid axle truck bouncing into the weeds. It was a packaging flex that made the most of every cubic inch, and engineers still brag about how they squeezed utility out of thin air. 25%, that's the number that haunted every Japanese automaker with dreams of selling a compact pickup in America. The so-called chicken tax, a relic of Cold War trade spats, was not just some bureaucratic footnote. It was a financial buzzsaw written into the harmonized tariff schedule under subheading 8704.21. If U.S. Customs called your imported vehicle a light truck, you paid an extra 25% of its value at the dock. For a $6,000 Subaru BRAT, that meant a $1,500 penalty, enough to price it straight into oblivion. The alternative was to get classified as a passenger car, and the tariff dropped to a mere 2.5%, or about $150. But what made a truck a truck? The law said any vehicle with a fixed rear cargo bed and no passenger seating in the back got the full tariff. Subaru's engineers and accountants stared down this rule like it was a riddle wrapped in red tape. One trade law historian puts it bluntly: the chicken tax was the single most effective design constraint on imported pickups in the late 1970s. It dictated what you could sell, how you could build it, and whether you could survive the American market. The BRAT's entire existence, from its unibody bones to its famously odd rear seating solution, was a direct response to this invisible economic sledgehammer. Plastic rear-facing jump seats, the most notorious hack in the Subaru BRAT's arsenal. Subaru's engineers, staring down the barrel of a 25% import tariff, did not beef up the bed or add a clever tailgate. Instead, they installed a pair of featherweight, molded plastic shells bolted straight to the cargo floor with just enough hardware to pass muster. No plush cushions, no headrests, just a thin layer of vinyl, a lap belt, and a prayer. The seats faced backwards, perched out in the open, exposed to the elements and everything the road could throw at you. The anchor points were welded tabs on the bed floor, reinforced just enough to keep U.S. Customs from crying foul. Each seat weighed less than a bowling ball, and the whole setup could be removed with a socket wrench and 5 minutes of determination. Subaru's paperwork called them auxiliary passenger accommodations, a phrase as flimsy as the seats themselves. Yet on the tariff forms, that was enough. As one automotive historian dryly put it, Subaru turned a loophole into a feature and a plastic seat into a $1,300 discount. It was legal theater, engineered on a shoestring, and just barely plausible enough to work. A BRAT owner from the early 80s, grinning in faded Polaroids, remembers his first ride in those infamous rear-facing seats. He said, "You didn't sit back there because you had to. You did it to prove you were braver or dumber than your friends." The seats themselves were hard plastic shells, barely padded, bolted right to the corrugated bed floor. No headrests, no side bolsters, just a lap belt and a pair of grab handles welded to the bed rails. Rain or shine, you faced backwards, legs dangling, wind hammering your face as the scenery rushed away from you. Every bump hit twice, once through the unibody and again through your spine. Passing semis blasted you with grit. One owner joked, "It was like riding a roller coaster with no restraints, only the ride never ended." The sense of exposure was total. You watched traffic approach from behind, tail lights shrinking to pinpricks. There was nothing between you and the world except a thin layer of plastic and your own grip strength. For a generation of thrill seekers, the danger seat was a badge of honor, a loophole you could actually sit in if you dared. Test results from the late 70s read like a prank on the Big Three. The BRAT, a featherweight at just over 2,170 pounds, posted a 0 to 60 time of 13.2 seconds. Hardly drag strip material, but more than enough for dirt roads and city traffic. Fuel economy was 20 miles per gallon in the city and 24 on the highway, trouncing the Hilux and S10 by 4 miles per gallon in mixed driving. But the real party trick was the ride. On Motor Trend's pothole course, the BRAT's independent suspension soaked up bumps with a comfort score of 7.8 out of 10, edging out American pickups that bounced their way to 5s and 6s. Wheel travel measured 7.5 inches front and rear, numbers that rivaled full-size trucks, but without the penalty of a live axle or leaf springs. Engineers like to joke that the BRAT handled like a sedan, even when the bed was empty and the rear seats were collecting rainwater. For a machine that looked like a dare, the numbers proved it. This was a utility vehicle that did not punish you for leaving the lumberyard empty. Regulators finally caught up with Subaru's legal gymnastics. In 1983, a memo from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration landed like a wrench in the works. Rear-facing plastic seats bolted to a pickup bed no longer passed muster as genuine passenger accommodations. The new standard required that any seat, no matter how flimsy, be part of the vehicle's crash structure, not just a bolt on afterthought. Subaru's Loophole, once the envy of importers, evaporated overnight. For the 1985 model year, the BRAT lost its jump seats. Customs reclassified it as a light truck, and the price jumped by over $1,000 thanks to the full 25% chicken tax. Sales plummeted. A historian sums it up. The BRAT's genius was also its undoing. The very hack that made it possible became the reason it vanished. Today, every automaker chases unibody pickups and clever loopholes, but none do it with quite the same audacity or absurdity as the BRAT. The lesson? Sometimes real innovation means breaking every rule and then bolting on a plastic jump seat. The future of trucks is still up for grabs.